this is the first part of a tutorial series that's going to walk you through the process of creating a custom UI component library and documentation site using React and Tailwind. So I'm going to just give a quick brief tour of the final product of the tutorial series. So here you have this landing page that you can get to at m6io.vercel.app. I'll link this in the description. So when you get to this home page, you have links to the various components as well as the navbar. So up at this navbar, I have a dark mode toggler and light mode toggler. This will be covered in a future video, not this video, as well as links to my YouTube channel and my GitHub repository, or my GitHub homepage, I should say. So if you enter the individual components, you'll see that these are some of the documentation parts that we'll be building in this video. So you have various reusable layout components like this section over here, these containers. You have these preview areas where your various components go. You do have this code preview action that is not going to be covered in this tutorial just because it's a little bit more advanced. So this will also be introduced in a future state. But what this does is whatever components are wrapped in here, if you click on the React button, it will display the React code. Like let's say you have end users who are installing your custom UI component library. This is how they would use your components. But since we're using Tailwind, let's say you want to, you don't want to lock consumers of your library into installing your UI components or using your code. You might want to just give them the Tailwind code so that they can do it themselves. So you can actually click this button, and this will show the HTML-ified version of the same component. And the nice thing about this preview component is that it doesn't actually have, you don't have to write this HTML in this React snippets yourself. It will basically take whatever's inside the preview and parse out this stuff. And like I said, this is something that we're going to go into at a future date, in a future video, excuse me. So yeah, so that's the buttons component. There's the cards. So we have two different variations. We have a content card. These are both customizable with different options. And we have our block link card. So when you click on these, they take you to, well, whatever you configured the block link to go to. And what's cool is that you actually, we're going to use these block links in the homepage. So the block links don't necessarily have to take you to outside of your application. They can be used within an application. So the idea is to make a little bit more of a practical use of a tutorial, something that you can build on later and expand and customize and really make your own. So yeah, so this is going to be the final product. Today in this video, what we're going to do is we're going to focus on just building out the initial components for the documentation site and the initial components that we're going to be working with as examples. So these three components, button, card, and input, these will all be built and componentized, and we'll also include the navbar and all the layout, the documentation layout specific components. So yeah, I guess let's go ahead and get started. So this just contains some starter code as well as some Tailwind configuration to save you some time. So to go ahead and get this code, you can download the zip file if you want, or the zip folder, I should say, if you want, or you can just go ahead and clone it using Git. So I'm in the folder where I want to start my project. I'm going to type git clone, paste that link in there, and then I'm going to rename it to my UI components. And I'm going to hit enter. And I'm going to type code to open it up in VS Code. Just type code space and then the folder that I want to open, which is my UI components. And then, remember, I renamed the starter repo to my UI components. So I'm going to go ahead and hit code, that, enter. And to go ahead and get started, I'm going to hit Control tilde to open up my integrated terminal. And from here, I need to first, before I begin, I need to install the packages that we're going to be using for this project. And if you want to know what packages those are, we are going to install some more in the future, but the starting ones are everything that's in this package.json manifest. So when I come in here and type npm I, this is shorthand for npm install. So if I type npm I and I hit enter, this will install all of the packages for this project as listed in this package.json in this node modules folder. Now, I've seen folks have issues with this in the past where they will run npm I from like a different terminal in like a different repository. So just make sure whenever you're running it in the folder that contains the package.json. And a quick way to just check whether or not you're in a folder that has the package.json, like if you're in the terminal, is just type ls. This is the terminal command for list. You hit enter, and you'll see package.json is right there. So yeah. So now that you have your packages installed, we need to actually start up our local development server. And to do that, what you want to do is you want to type npm run dev, and this is going to execute this script right here, which is npm run vite. Vite is our build tool. It takes care of compiling all of our JavaScript and React code down into something that can be used by the browser, and it runs it, or I should say it builds and runs it from one of our ports. So I'm gonna type npm run dev, hit enter, and then you'll see it says the project is now running on localhost 5174. So on my other terminal, I am gonna run npm run dev for the final version of the project, just because we're gonna be doing a lot of back and forth comparison, so that we can like show how we're building this thing. So yeah, now that we got this running, I'm just gonna split screen this, have my browser take up the other side of the screen. Back in my VS Code, I don't want to have my terminal showing all the time. So to hide it, I'm just going to hit Control tilde twice, and that will collapse it. And then back in my browser, and there you go. Our application is now up and running. So what we're going to do first is we're going to build out the skeleton of the application. So before we get to like adding any actual content, any of the custom components we're going to be building, etc., we're just going to build out the actual the layout and all of the reusable layout components. So looking at this, what we're going to do first is build out this navbar at the top. And this navbar is, it's exactly what it sounds like. It's a navigation bar. So, you know, you can put links up here, and you can put other things like configuration actions, like the dark mode toggle will eventually go in here, and, you know, so forth and so on. So let's go ahead and get started with that piece first. So I'm just going to switch tabs back to my local running server, which is this one right here. So we have our hello world started. And to get started with actually changing this, I'm going to head into my source folder, and then I'm going to open App.tsx. Now, the entry point for our application is actually in main.tsx. However, where we're going to be doing our app-related work is going to be in this file, and all of our other components will eventually get imported down into this one, which will then be imported by main.tsx. So yeah, what we're going to do first, I guess I'm just going to blast out everything that's in here because we don't need it. So I just deleted all that. I'm going to hit save, and it does give us an error because we're returning an empty parentheses. So just to get rid of that pesky error, I'm going to go ahead and start building out this, this navbar. So because this is going to be a container that holds links, we're going to use the HTML header. So if I just type header and hit enter, it will create the header tags for me. Or I'm going to hit Control Z real quick. If I type enter and then dot, I can start adding classes. And every class that I add, if I hit another dot, I'll be able to add another class. And classes are, I guess, names for CSS definitions. In our case, since we're using Tailwind, we're going to be referring to Tailwind classes, which are more convenient and shorthand CSS properties. So yeah, so for our header, we're going to give it a full width. It's going to take up the entire width of the screen. We are going to give it a border that will be on the bottom, so border -b, and we're going to be giving it a white background, so bg-white. And when I hit enter, you'll see that it created the header and it assigned all the class names correctly. So when I hit save, it gives us nothing. And the reason is because, well, we didn't put anything inside the header. So to quickly remedy that, let's just type, "Hi, Mom," and we save. And you can see there's "Hi, Mom" all the way at the top. I am also going to zoom in. I'm using a pretty high resolution monitor, so things can kind of be hard to read. So there you go. You can kind of see like that border at the bottom. Now, let me just zoom out to something that's not super crazy. Like, I guess 200 is fine. So what I'm going to add now, I'm going to get rid of "Hi, Mom" inside the header. And we're going to add the guts of the navbar. So the first part is going to be a div, which will contain a flex class. It'll have a height of 16, which translates to 4 rem. Is 4 rem right? I think, yeah, 4 rem. I don't know what the pixels are off the top of my head, but I can show you how to find those. So we're going to give that a height of 16. We are going to center everything vertically and inside the navbar, or inside the div, I should say. And we're going to give this a horizontal padding of 10. Whoops, 10. But when we reach the small screen breakpoint, we are going to give it a horizontal padding of 16. And when we reach the large screen breakpoint, we are going to give it a horizontal padding of 44. We hit enter, and now, again, "Hi, Mom." We save, and there we go. So you see that it added that padding and kind of centered everything real nice. So now let's go ahead. Again, we're going to get rid of our "Hi, Mom," and we're going to add another div. This time we're going to give it a horizontal margin of auto. So it'll kind of shove everything evenly from each end. We're going to give it a full width. So it'll take up as much of its container as it can. And we're going to give it a max width. So it'll fill up the container up till the max width of 3XL. And then everything inside, we're going to space it vertically using space Y 20. So if there's anything inside here that will stack one on top of the other, this will give them vertical spacing. So we hit enter. Again, "Hi, Mom." And it doesn't really look like it changed, but that's because this will get used by the next div. So for our next div, we're going to add a flexbox, and we're going to give it a justify between. And this is going to shove whatever children this thing has. So flexbox will make everything in line with one another, and then it'll shove everything, all of the inline children, as far away from each other as possible. So it'll basically, it'll basically shove everything to either end. So, but it only has 2 ends, not 3 ends. So there we go, div justify between. And then inside here, just kind of show you what that looks like. So we do "Hi, Mom," as one paragraph. mom. And then actually, instead of a paragraph, I'll do 2 divs. So we'll do div. Well, I'll just write out the whole thing and then we can do the hi mom after. So this is going to be another flex box inside of this flex box. So it's going to be flex dot flex1. So this lets it grow to fill up the flex container. And then we're going to give it a vertical centering. So item center. But we're going to move everything to the first part of the flex box, which we're going to do using justify start. We hit enter and we type hi mom. We save. You'll see it's still there because we use justify start. If I use justify end, it'll shove it to the end. If I use justify center, it'll put it in the middle. But we want this to be at the start. So I am going to add another div real quick. So this first div, the hi mom, this is where we're going to put our brand or if you have a logo, or if you have like whatever your site name is where you'd put the first one. Second one, we'll call it Hey Dad. And for the second one, it's going to have the same classes, but instead of justify start, it's going to be justify end. And there you go. Hi mom. Hi dad with a Y. So now let's go ahead and get rid of this nonsense. Inside of this div, we are going to add a anchor tag. So this is a link. When we click on this, we want it to take us home. So this will be more useful when we have navigation, like routing inside the site later on. So for now, this is just going to like scroll you to the top, basically. So here we're going to put an anchor tag with class names of inline flex. We're going to give it a height of 10. We're going to center it vertically, if I can type. Justify center. This is going to center it horizontally. We're going to give it large text, so text large. And we're going to give it bold font. So font dash bold. And we're also going to give it a dark gray text color. So text gray 800. We hit enter. And now for the href, this is basically like where it's going to link to. We'll do slash. So this just means home or here. No, not here, sorry. Here as in like the root of the site. So if you're at like, localhost 5173/potato/bean/big cajonas, then when you click this, it'll just take you to 5173, which is your root route, so to speak. And then inside of here, we're going to actually put the text that shows up. So hi mom. So there you go. But I don't want to call it hi mom. I'm just going to call it my channel name, which is M6IO. There we go. And in case you're wondering why it looks so large, it's because I zoomed in to +200. So this is what it looks like at +100. But again, I have a pretty high resolution screen and I want this to be legible in the video. So I'm going to just zoom it in a little bit. Now inside of my second div, the justify end one, this one is where I'm going to add some of the fun juicy bits. So here we're going to add a nav. So the nav is more or less like a element that you use for providing links, navigation links, which we're going to do right now. So I type nav dot, and this is more for like accessibility and screen readers and stuff. It doesn't really have a functional benefit for your site for people who aren't visually impaired. But if you're using screen readers, or if you want to make your site accessible to, I don't know, web scrapers so they can figure out what links you have, this is what that's for. So I recommend you read more about ARIA standards and rules and stuff like that if you're interested in that stuff. So for this nav, we're going to give it a class of not flex, and we're going to center everything vertically. So we're going to do item center. We are going to, and then we're going to space everything horizontally with 1, which is like 0.25 rem. So there's our nav. And in here, we're going to have 2 A tags. So A dot, we're going to do height of 10, width of 10. We're going to have inside padding. well, padding is always on the inside, so padding of 2, and we're going to give it a dark gray text color. So text gray 800. And for the first one, because it's going to be a link to YouTube, we're going to give it a hover pseudo selector. So what this means is when you hover over this element, we can change a certain thing about it. So in this case, when we hover over YouTube, we're going to use the YouTube red color. So to do that, I type text dash, and then I open up a bracket. And then in here, I'm going to insert YouTube's brand red color, which is FF0000. There we go. And if I hit, oh, wait, let me try that again. Okay, it doesn't like that. Oh, it doesn't like the bracket. Okay, hold on. Let me do this without, I'm just going to cut this real quick. And then, oh Lord, I cannot type 800. And then I'm going to paste that in there. There we go. So now that worked. So in this href, I'm going to link it to my YouTube. So that's just, you don't have to type this if you want. You can fill this in with whatever is more relevant to you. Or if you have a YouTube channel, you can do this too. YouTube.com. Just make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, and all that good stuff. At M6IO. I think that's my username. And then inside of here, I'm just going to type YouTube. Save. And there you go. So when I hover over it, you'll see it changes color to red. I'm going to copy this. I'm going to paste it right underneath it again. And this time I'm going to make it go to my GitHub. And since I'm pretty consistent with my naming, all I have to do is remove that at and then change youtube.com to github.com. And if I save that, it shoves it over there. And the reason it shoved it over there like that is because I made the width 10. So just for the purposes of this current example, I am going to change the width of 10 to just nothing. Get rid of that. And I save, and there you go. So when you hover over YouTube, it's red. When you hover over GitHub, it's red. That's not right. We need to use GitHub's color. So I just picked a random color from GitHub's brands, which you'll find in the source code that I shared earlier, the one with all the chapters. I do have links to, I think it's brandcolors.net to find like what the different colors for different brands are. So for GitHub's, I'm using like their indigo color, which is 40, cannot read, 78C0. Save, and there you go. There's GitHub's indigo, there's YouTube's red. So I don't actually want to use text though. I want to use logos / icons. So that requires me to install a package. So I hit Control tilde to open up my terminal. I don't want to stop my server, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to click this split terminal button, which the hotkey for is Control-Shift-S. It's either Control-Shift-S or Control-Shift-5. I have bad eyes, so I'm just going to click the button. And here, to install the package that I need, I'm going to type npm I, short for install. And then the package I want is React Icons, which is phenomenal because it has so many useful icons that we can leverage to our heart's content. So now that I have that installed, up at the top of my file, I'm going to need to import the icons that I want to use. But before I do that, I'm just going to hit Control tilde twice just to hide my terminal. And you know what? This is getting a little hard to read, so I'm also going to hit Control B to hide my file explorer. So now I'm going to type import, open curly brackets, SI YouTube, so that's simple icons YouTube, and SI GitHub, so that's simple icons GitHub. And I'm going to import those from React-icons, but React icons has a bunch of different like icon variants. So I need to choose, see all of these. So I need to choose SI, which is the simple icons package. And now when I hit save, it's not going to do anything because I'm not actually using these. So I'm going to double click this SI YouTube. I'm going to come down to my anchor tag. And here, just going to get rid of YouTube. I'm going to open up a element tag. I'm going to paste SI YouTube down there. And I'm going to close the tag. And when I hit save, well, there you go. You have your YouTube icon. Now I'm going to do the same thing down here for GitHub. So we paste that, si GitHub, save, and now we have the GitHub icon. So look at that. Our navbar is complete. Well, it's almost complete. I just need to add a class real quick. So I'm going to type class name equals, because I don't like how these are shifted upwards. I want them to fill up their space a little bit better. So here we're going to type hfull, so that's just 100% height, and then width full, so that's going to take up its full container. And I'm just going to copy this and paste it down there. Save that. Looks a lot better, but there's one more thing that we're missing. Earlier, I removed the W10 so that the YouTube and the GitHub weren't overlapping, but now I need to add them back. So we give this back its width of 10, and I'm just going to copy that, paste it down here, save, and there we go. Our navbar's done. So now what we're going to do is add in the skeleton of the main content area. So what I need to do is I'm actually going to wrap all of this in a div. So quick and easy way to do that, I'm just going to highlight all this, Control X, div enter, and paste that back in. So we save that, and now underneath the header, I'm going to add some comments so that it's easy for me to understand what's going on. So up here, this is just the navbar, and then underneath the header, we're just going to put main content area. So this is where all the actual stuff in the page is going to go. So for example, let me just grab the final version. So if this is the navbar, then this down here, all of this is the content area. So what we're going to be doing with this particular part is we're going to be adding not this content, but the skeleton of this header region, which is contained inside of a container. So like the entire button area all the way down to here, this is a single container. And then that container contains, well, it has this header, but then it also contains these individual sections. So these are like variants of the component. So this would be considered a section, right? So these like very repeatable, very modular-esque wrapper things that can have different content displayed. So let's go ahead and start building that out. So back in VS Code, under this comment where I wrote main container area, what I'm going to do is, well, first thing I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to build out the skeleton of this. And actually, let me switch back to my local server. There we go. So let's put in a main tag. And this main is going to have a class of a padding of 10, but when it reaches a small screen breakpoint, it's going to have a horizontal padding of 16. And when it reaches a large breakpoint, it's going to have a horizontal padding of 44. Okay. And just to show you what this looks like, I'm going to add a BG, I don't know, blue, just so you can see what this main content area will look like. So right now it's not showing you anything. That's because there's nothing in here. So let's just add some of the content. So we'll add a div that has a margin in the horizontal direction of auto, and we're going to give it a max width of 3XL, similar to the max width of the content inside the navbar. So that way, like, no matter how big this screen gets, whatever the content is always the same width. It's a little bit easier to, less distracting in my opinion. And then we're going to space out all the things inside of this div vertically using space Y20. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and save that. So again, nothing's going to show up because we still don't have stuff in here. So inside of this div, I'm going to go ahead and start adding in content containers. So the content container is going to look like this, right? It's going to have a header. Hi, Mom. And then it's going to have a div, which is going to contain well, let me actually style this. So I'm just going to hit Control Z a few times, div. We're going to, Lord, I cannot type, space everything in the Y direction by 10. So this is going to be, the part of the container that contains the sections. So the container comprises of two parts: the actual header of the container and the stuff where the child parts of the container go into. And that's going to be this area. So this is going to be the actual container, but the container is going to have its own header as well. It'll make more sense in a second. So we said this is going to have spacing of Y of 10, in the Y direction, and then when we reach medium breakpoints, we'll give it a Y spacing of 16. So it'll be a little bit more breathable, or it'll have a little bit more breath between the sections at medium breakpoints. So inside of here is where we're actually going to have the content sections. So I cannot type section. I'm going to save that, and there you go. You have your hi mom. I don't know why the background blue doesn't work, because there is no such thing as background blue. You have to choose like a color token. So we'll put 500. So there you go. So now you see what the background, what like this container comprises of. So like, for example, this one is background blue of 500. I'm going to copy this and paste it here. I'm going to change this to red just so you can kind of see like how this one looks, like what space this one takes inside. So when I save that, so you'll see that like this content takes up this part of the screen, and this content, the main, takes up this part of the screen, right? So just a nifty little trick to kind of like see, like to visually like see how your components are being laid out. Helps with debugging if you're ever like confused why certain things are wonky in terms of their placement. So I am going to get rid of these because we don't need them. I just wanted to kind of show that neat little trick. So inside the header is going to contain two things. So it's going to contain the actual component name as well as a description of the component. So what that means is we're going to have two things inside of this header. We're going to have an h1 tag, and this h1 is going to have the classes of block. We'll give it a text of 2XL sizing. We're going to make it bold. So font, not font. I do that a lot. Font dash bold. And we'll give it a dark gray color. So text, gray, 800. And the small breakpoints, we'll give it a text sizing of 3XL. So once you hit the small screen sizes, the text will appear bigger. So this is just to like help with mobile devices, because small is like, I think, tablet size. So like on small devices, it won't be like overwhelmingly huge. But then once it gets to like bigger screens, it'll get even bigger. So that's going to be our H1. And I'm just going to put component name, because remember, this is still a skeleton piece. So there you go, component name. Then underneath here, we're going to add the subtitle or the description. So this is going to be a p tag. I'm going to give it a top margin of 2 just to give it some space between it and its and the header. And then we'll give it a large text. So text dash large. And we'll give it that same dark gray color, which I'm just going to copy from here. I didn't copy the T, so TX gray 800. And okay, there we go. Inside here, I'm just going to type component description. There we go. So there's a little description, there's a little header. Now, that I think is pretty much it for the header. For the actual content area, or the content section area, what we're going to do is for each section, we're going to have a div. So we'll say this is one section, and then this is another section, right? And then inside of the divs, we're going to have three things. We're going to have a section heading. We're going to have a section description. And we're going to have a section preview area. This is where the components will actually be displayed, right? So let's start off with the section heading. So this is going to be a H2 heading with large text, large, bold font font dash bold. I keep doing that. And text gray 8. Okay, you know what? I don't even know where the 8 is. 800. There we go. And hit enter. And then in here, I'm just going to put section heading. Save that. There's a section heading. Now we're going to add the description. And because I don't feel like typing this over and over again, I'm just going to triple click this, copy that, paste it here. And for this section heading, I need to change the top margin to 1. I want to get rid of the large text because that's actually not for this one. And then instead of text gray 800, I want to give it a more muted color. I want to give it a 600. And we'll do section description text. Save that. There's our section description. And the last thing that we're going to do is we're going to put the preview area. So this one's going to be pretty simple, relatively speaking. So we'll give it a div with a margin top of 3. So this is just going to push this underneath the section description by 3, which is like, oh, there it is, 0.75 rem, or 12 pixels. Oh, and if you want to know how I got this hover over, there's the Tailwind CSS extension, which you can grab from here. So if you type Tailwind, there it is, Tailwind CSS IntelliSense. This is awesome. So this is how I get those little hover over pop-ups to really tell me what the CSS that I'm getting out of this class is. Very useful, very useful. It'll also like scream at you if you're using class names that don't exist. So if I type MTY, it'll scream at me and it'll say MTY is not a Tailwind CSS class. So it is pretty handy. It also does like auto sorting of the classes and that kind of stuff. And it gives you this. So like when I'm actually typing class names, if I hit space, it'll, whoa, let me try that again. If I hit space, it'll like give me all the options and it'll like start auto completing them for me. So it's pretty useful. Definitely recommend using it if you don't feel like struggling too much. So inside of this div, I'm going to start using that IntelliSense a little bit more. So I'm going to type this actually. I'm going to do div dot, and that'll open up a class name with empty quotes. And inside of here, we're going to make it a flex box. We're going to stack the things in the flex box vertically using flex column. And then we're going to give this div a rounded XL border. And give it a padding of 6. And we're going to let it kind of stand out from its background using a shadow. And we'll make that shadow small. If I hit save, you can kind of see it, I think. But you won't be able to see it until we start putting things in here, which I'm going to do now. So I want to add some things in here just for like examples. These would be like the components that you would use. So I'd actually say this. So the previewed stuff, aka the child components that get yeeted here. I can never type components, right? Components. Components are like Lego blocks for, React applications, so to speak. So I'm just going to put a div in here with a background of blue, 500, and we'll give it an opacity of 50. Why did I do it that way? Okay, I should have done a /50. So that just makes it a blue color with an opacity of 50. And inside of the div, I'm going to do component 1, save that, and there it is. And let me hide this sidebar by hitting Control B because it's taking up too much space. And then a little nifty trick, if I want to duplicate something, I can hit Alt-Shift down, and that saves me the trouble from having to triple click it. And I'm going to change this to component 2, and we save it, and it's like taking up full width and it's stacked vertically. I don't want that actually. So I need to add one more thing inside of this preview container. And that's going to be a div that has a flex box, and that flex box is actually going to wrap. So that way, if something takes up, like if the things end up like filling up the horizontal space, it'll like go to the next line. And then we're going to give everything a gap spacing of 2. So it's just going to like space everything out space all the children inside out by 2 tailwind units. So I'm going to cut this, I'm going to paste it inside the div, save, and looks a lot better in my opinion. I am actually just going to add like a padding of 3 so it's easier to see the component. Ooh, there we go. Look at that. So now we have this section and we have this other content section down here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to like duplicate this part of the code. So I think, yeah, so it's like from this div, actually content section, you know what? Yeah, I just grab this part, control C that, and just replace these two with that. And now we have 2 sections. And let's go ahead and while we're at it, just do 2 containers. So I minimize the header, minimize the div, copy both the header and the div and the comment, whatever. Those are all useful. Paste that there, save. And now you can see like, wow, this skeleton is really coming to life. So, you know, starting to look good. And we're almost there. We're almost ready to start putting in these components. But there is a quick thing that I need to address, and that is the you'll notice that when I scroll, the navbar stays at the top and disappears. And you know, I personally like to have the navbar always be visible whenever I'm scrolling in an application, because you never know when you need to like if you put actions up here or menus or stuff like that, you want to be able to access that at any point, because you could have really long content and you know. You don't want to have to scroll all the way up to get to it. So, and I'll show you like what I mean. So like this is the final version of this tutorial. You'll see when I start scrolling that navbar stays stuck up top. And spoiler alert, that's exactly what we're going to do. We are going to make it a sticky navbar. So to do that, up here where in the navbar header tag, where I have the full width, I am going to hit space and I'm going to add a sticky class, give it a top 0. So this is just going to like, it's saying like it's going to be sticky at the top. So at pixel 0. And I am going to give it a z index of 50. The Tailwind gives you like 5 options for z index. They're all like 0, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. I think that was 6 actually. And the reason I'm doing this is because sometimes like other elements, like when they're disabled or something, they'll have like a higher z index. So this just makes sure that this this header or this navbar, excuse me, stays above everything else. So yeah, so I think I can save that, and there you go. It's stuck to the top. But there is one thing I want to do, and this is just for like completion's sake. In this div, I am going to add some classes, and this will make more sense later, but I'm going to add a relative sizing. I'm going to give so this is just to like make sure, that the container, the overall app layout container, it's always set to be at least the height of the screen, meaning that even if the content doesn't take up the full height of the screen, it'll make sure that the container at least takes up the height of the screen. And this is for just for like UX purposes. And I also want to give it a background of white. This is like, right now it does look white, but it's technically transparent. So it's just to like make sure that it has a white background. Eventually when we introduce dark mode, we'll add a dark variant of this, which is where this will become handy. So I hit save, and there we go. Now our skeleton of our application is done. Now, there is something that I do want to do, and this is for a better developer experience and better React-esque design. I want to componentize some of these, some of this content in here. And the reason I want to do that is just to make sure that we isolate functionality and the actual stuff in individual components. You don't have to do it this way, but I prefer to, because eventually if you start writing your entire application in one file, like right now we barely have anything in here and it's already 156 lines, it is going to get pretty unwieldy. So this is just for like cleanliness sake and separation of concerns and so forth and so on. And it'll also be useful when you start expanding this, because this header, oh boy, we're going to be adding a lot of stuff to this. So like, this is already taken up, what, 32 lines. So it'd be nice for it to, have room to grow in its own file. And that's exactly what I'm going to do. Well, actually, before we do the header, I'm going to do the other ones down here, because these are actually more important. You'll notice that the content section, like what I was doing earlier, I was copy and pasting the same thing, right? So at first I copy and pasted the sections inside, then I copy and pasted the container, and you don't want to have to do that every time you want to add one of these things. It increases the risk of like having slight differences, like maybe you add a class to this container and you forget to add it to this one. So when you have this defined in one place and you import it as a function, as a component, which we're using functional components, so function equals component in this case, you want to have it be consistent. You want to have a single source of truth. That's what we're going to do right now. So the first component that we're going to create, that we're going to componentize, so to speak, is the content section. So I'm going to grab this, and I'm going to hit Control-C, and in my Explorer, I'm going to create a new folder. So I'm in my source directory. I'm going to create a new folder called Components. And in here, I'm going to create two folders. I'm going to create library. So this is where all of our UI library components are going to go, like the button, the card, the input, etc. But we're not going to do anything with this right now. Instead, I'm going to create a second folder inside a component. Make sure you do it inside a component. So notice how I clicked out of library and onto components again. If you click it again while you're selected on library, it'll put that new folder in library. So pro tip. So inside of components, I'm creating a new folder, and this one is for site. So these are all the components that we're using for our site. And the ones that we're going to put in here, I'm just going to create all of them right now just to save some time. So the ones that we're going to create in here are going to be the container. So it's going to be the content container. The other one we're going to create is Navbar.tsx. And then we're also going to create the section.tsx. And for good measure, we'll add layout.tsx. Okay. So now inside of section, I'm going to, using the IntelliSense, not the Tailwind IntelliSense, I'm using, I think it's ES7. I don't know why I typed R7. ES7, yeah, so ES7 plus React Redux native snippets. I'm using these snippets to write less code, basically. So this just lets me have shortcuts for writing React and ES7 code. So an example of what I would do with that is in this new section.tsx file, I'll type RAFC. And this is shorthand for creating a React arrow function component. So when I hit enter, excuse me, when I hit enter, we have our arrow function component started out. And inside of this return, I'm going to just remove this div. I'm going to paste what I had copied from the last file, which didn't really work. And the reason it didn't work is because I need to get rid of this comment. There we go. Yeah, so it has to be a div. It has to be like an HTML element, like at the top and at the bottom. So yeah, so there we go. I think. Oh well, let me correct myself. So this is going to work if every time I want to use the section component, I intend on only returning this static hard-coded text. But I want to use this in a more reusable way. I want to use this as a function. So to do that, what I want to do is I want to define what the parameters that go into this function are. So to do that, I'm going to, inside of this parentheses, I'm going to open up a curly bracket, and I'm going to start typing in the expected parameters. So I'm going to call them title, description, and children. And you'll see there's a few errors, and that's because these are both not being used and they don't have their types defined. So let's go ahead and define their types. So title is going to be of type string. Oh, I thought I pressed enter. Description is going to be also of type string. And the children, which are going to be these things, the other React or HTML that we pass into it, these are going to be React.React nodes. Not nodes with an S, just node. But that's what they're going to be. I can actually get rid of this import statement actually because React is available globally using Vite. So I'm going to get rid of that because I don't need it. And I'm still getting errors, and that's because we're not using these. So let's go ahead and fix that. So here, where I have the section heading, I'm going to get rid of this, and I'm going to pass in that title that gets passed into the section component. So we open a curly brace, type title, and close the curly brace, and now you can see that error went away. Save that. I'm going to do the same thing for the section. So down here, I'm going to open up a curly brace, description, save. And then here, where these child components are, I'm going to get rid of both of them. I'm going to open up a curly brace, type children. And now, whatever children get passed into this component will appear here. Whatever title and description get passed in will appear here and here. And these are all required. If I wanted to make them optional, I would put a question mark next to it, and it won't show it. But I want to make them required. I want to make sure that wherever you have a section, that all of these are available. So let's go ahead and start doing that. Now we're going to go back to App.tsx, and wherever we have sections defined, so here we have section heading, I'm going to add, oh wait, no, it's content section, excuse me. So I'm going to press enter twice under content section. I'm going to open an HTML tag. I'm going to type section. I cannot type section, and you'll see it provides the suggestion from where to import it. So if I click that, it'll add the import statement up top. So now I'm importing this component. So I can go ahead and close this, but it'll give me an error because I did not pass in the title or description. So to remedy that, I'm just going to type title, and I'm going to pass in the text. I'm just going to copy and paste this text, the section heading text, because we're just replacing this. I'm just going to type section heading using a component instead of hard coding. Okay. I don't know why I had to do all that, but who cares? So underneath the title, we're going to type description, and this is going to be equals, quote, and the same thing, section, description text. And I'm going to also copy using a component. And this is just to show you like the difference. So there we go. Too many spaces over here. It's still giving me an error. That's because I have children as a required property. So I need to pass in some children. So we're going to come down here into this preview area, and I'm going to grab these two divs, which are these two things that show up in the preview area. And I'm just going to paste them there. And I'm going to hit save. And now you can see it's identical, except these are the ones that are using our component instead of hard coding. So I'm going to copy that actually, and I'll put this in here where it's component 1 using a component instead of hard coding, component 2. That way, like, you can see, okay, this is the one using a component, right? So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to replace all of these other ones. So I'm just going to minimize this. I'm going to minimize this, and I don't want to choose the other one. Instead, what I'm going to do, I'm going to highlight this div over here up till this comment, because now I no longer need all of these. I can just replace them with this. So actually, before I highlight that, I'm just going to copy this section, and then I'm going to highlight this. I'm going to hit Control-Shift-L, and that'll select all the instances in this file where I have duplicates of that, and I'm going to hit Control-V. And what that did is that just replaced everything with those sections. So there you go. Now our skeleton has a reusable section component. So the next one that we want to do the same exact process, but with the container. And this one's a little bit faster, so I'm going to try to breeze through this one real quick. So for this one, we are effectively just going to have this div up till this header. So I'm just going to grab everything up to this comment. And I know I'm not grabbing the close. Well, you know what? Here. I'll just minimize this and I'll grab all of this. So the content container comment all the way down till the end of this div. So I'm going to copy these. I'm going to head to the container.tsx, RAFC. That creates a new React component. I'm going to replace the contents of this return with what I just copied. And I'm going to get rid of the sections because I don't want these. Instead, and you probably guessed it, in this section area, I'm going to return the children that get passed in here, because whatever the body of this container element, the same way we did it with the section where you pass in those components and then it renders them wherever you define children, I'm going to do the same thing here. So the sections will show up here, but I need to define them as parameters. So open bracket, and just to save some time, I'm going to head to section.tsx. And I'm just going to copy everything from line 9 to line 2. So how the props are defined, basically. Head back to the container and paste these like so. Title, description, children. Yeah, that looks right. And now I'm just going to replace this thing where it says component name. I'm going to replace this with description. And I'm tripping. I should have replaced this with title. I'm just going to copy this and paste it down here. And I'm going to replace this with title. There we go. And I'm going to get rid of this comment because I can't have a comment up there. And it's screaming at me. Oh, okay. The reason it's screaming at me is because I have 2 elements in here when you should only have 1 element. So in order to make this 1 element, I'm going to use a React fragment. So in the olden days, you used to have to do this where you'd open up a HTML tag and you type react.fragment. But you actually don't need to do this anymore as of, I think, last year or the year before. So I can actually just pass in like an open close HTML. So this is shorthand for React fragment. So this will allow me to have, quote unquote, 1 React element returned. So now I can save that and go ahead and use it. So I actually don't need this import React from React anymore. Save that. Head back to my App.tsx. And now what I'm going to do is every place that I've used that container code, I'm going to replace it with the actual container component. So I'm just going to minimize these. I think it is actually here. Let's do it like this. So yeah. Underneath this space Y20, I am going to add a container. I'm gonna give it a title of, I don't know what I called it, component name using a component of hard coding, end quote. I do need to close this because it's getting real. Oh my gosh, I forgot the quote. Whoops. There we go. Let's try that again. There we go. Close it. And I do need to add a description as well. So I'm just going to open up this header and grab that description because I don't feel like typing that again. So copy that. And in here, type description, component description, using a title instead of hard coding. There we go. And then, whoops, sorry about that. Inside the container, I'm just going to paste these 2. I'm going to copy and paste these 2 sections. So I paste that like so. That's screaming out. Oh, it cannot find it. The reason it cannot find it is because I didn't import it. So I just need to come up here. I'm going to just Alt-Shift down this line. And there we go. It duplicated it. I'm going to select this section. I'm going to hit, actually, I'm going to select this one just for hierarchical purposes. It's not really useful, just, you know, me being nitpicky. And I'm going to hit Control D, so that's going to select the next instance of it. And I'm going to type container, and there we go. We're now importing the container. We save, and you'll see component name using a component instead of hard coding. Yeah. So what I'm going to do now is just to get rid of that, the old version of this, I'm going to, same thing that we did before, select all of these, Control-Shift-L. Oh, Yeah, maybe it's not exactly the same in this one, but that's fine. Oh yeah, it's not because there's different. The content looks slightly different, but I can get rid of them because I don't actually need them anymore. So there we go. Save that. And just so that we have parity with what we had before, I'm just going to copy this. I'm going to paste it. I guess I'll paste it twice since we do have, excuse me, since we do have 3 components in our final project. And there we go. We have our 3 containers. And there is one last thing that I want to refactor out of this. Well, 2 last things actually. So it is the navbar. So I'm just going to minimize this header. I'm going to grab it, Control X, go to navbar, RAFC, get rid of import React because I don't need that. Paste that there, get rid of this comment, and then, oh, I do need to import these logos into this file. So head back to app. They're no longer used here. So I'll just Control X out this line. And then in my navbar, I'll paste that line in there. We have no more errors. I save that. And then in App.tsx, I will now, where I had that navbar, now I'll just open up a HTML bracket, type navbar, enter, close that, and there's our navbar. So nothing changed because, well, nothing changed. Now I just have it coming in as a component. And I do also want to, yeah, should I do it? I guess I should do it. I'm going to go ahead and componentize the layout, the entire app's layout as well. And this one's going to be a little bit interesting. Well, not really. So for the layout, this is just like, this is going to make a lot more sense when we introduce routing, but I figured I'd go ahead and add it in as a sneak peek. So for the layout, what we're going to do is back in app, I'm basically going to grab this div, well, this div and this div all the way down to here, okay? So I'm gonna grab all of these. So it's everything up to the first container. I'm actually gonna Control X them. And back in the layout, I'm gonna paste them here. And then what I'm gonna do, I need to close out these HTML elements, but first I need to import the children. So I am just gonna grab that code from here. So from the container file, so I'm going to Control C that, go back to my layout, open a curly brace, type children, and outside of the curly brace, do a colon, do another curly brace, and then paste what I just copied. And then down here, under this last div, I'm going to render those children. So this is where all those containers are going to get rendered. And those containers, when we add routing, those are going to be individual pages. So a little bit of a sneak peek, like I said. So to close all those tags, I'm going to hit enter. I'm going to hit open, close, open HTML bracket, add a slash to indicate that it's a close tag. Excuse me, not bracket. I don't know why I keep saying bracket. Open another HTML element, use the slash to indicate that it's closing. One more time. And then we save. We need to import the navbar here. So I'm going to go over here, backspace the R, press R again. That gives us a suggestion to import the navbar. And there we go. Now we have the navbar. So I'm going to save that. Back in app.tsx, what I'm going to do, I'm just going to minimize these containers. I'm going to cut these. I'm going to get rid of this excess. I'm going to open up an HTML element, type layout, hit enter to import it, close that element, enter, paste, save, get rid of the navbar. This is a lot of stuff. And there we go. We now have a really nice, neat, and componentized app skeleton. And we are ready to start adding in our button component. So let's go ahead and get started with this button component. So we're going to head into the library folder, and we're going to create a new file called button.tsx. We're going to create a new component. So this component is going to be a reusable and configurable component, right? Because we want the component to take in a variant property. So if it's primary, it should have these kinds of specific styles. If it's secondary, it should have these styles. If it's tertiary, it should have these styles. There are common styles between these three, but there are also unique styles. Like for example, the underline, this only applies to the tertiary. The border that you see over here, this only applies to the secondary, and this like solid base color, this solid base background color only applies to the primary, as an example. So yeah, so let's go ahead and start building these out. Now in the button file, let's just create a new arrow function component. And instead of returning a div, we actually want to return a button. And why am I getting an error? Oh, I'm getting an error because I don't have a close tag. There we go. So right now, our button component is just returning a basic HTML button. But what we want to do is we want to dynamically change what classes get applied into this button. And before we do that, we actually want to define what the base classes are. So the base classes being like the common classes, right? So we'll just say base classes, and let's go ahead. Oops, const. So let's go ahead and define our base classes. So this is just going to be a string, because this will get passed into the class name attribute in this button element. And instead of returning this two quotes, we're actually going to add an object over here, and we're going to add base classes there. So when we're defining the base classes, let's see, what are the base classes? We have inline flex. So this is so that if we have like icons and text in there, they appear side by side. We want to make sure that the items are centered, so vertically and horizontally, I should say. So we're going to use item center, justify center. We want the things inside of the button to have a little bit of spacing between them. So we're going to add a gap of 2, and that's supposed to be a 2. And we're gonna give the buttons a rounded border. Now later on, you can actually you can make this dynamic if you want. Like you can have this be a property instead of like defining it explicitly like how we're doing here. But that's up to your own discretion. For the purposes of the tutorial, we're just gonna make it a rounded button. So we're gonna give it an internal X padding of 4. And the Y padding is going to be variable because the secondary button actually has a slightly different Y padding than the other two variants. So we're not going to define the padding in the base classes, the Y padding, I should say. So we're also going to make the text small. And again, this is something that if you want to make dynamic or variable later on, then that is up to you. So we'll add a transition so that when the user hovers over the button, it kind of like fades in and out of the color change. So we'll add a focus styling. So I don't like that bold outline that comes like out of the box. So I'm just gonna like have a no outline, and instead we're gonna use when the button is focused, so when it's clicked on or when it's tabbed onto, we're gonna instead use Tailwind's ring classes. So we're gonna give it a width of 2, a ring width of 2, and we're also gonna give the ring a offset of 2. So that's just gonna like place it off of the button, like instead of this ring being like directly on the button, it's gonna be like offset off the button by 2 tailwind units. And we'll have it so that when the button is, if the user passes in a disabled option to the button, it will give it a pointer events of none, so that basically like prevents it from being clicked on, and it'll also make it slightly transparent, which we'll do by changing the opacity. I cannot spell. Opacity of 50. And I wonder why I'm getting all these errors. Parameter initializer is only allowed in a function. Oh my gosh, I'm doing all this inside the return statement. Yikes. Should have looked at my error first. There we go. Okay. So I'm gonna go ahead and save this, and I am gonna head into my my app file and import and use these. So just that way we can see what we're doing. So in this first section, in this first container, I'm gonna change the title to button. And in the description, I'm just gonna say well, you know what? I'll just copy and paste it from the final thing, and you can pause and copy this over if you want. So we'll just paste that in the description. There we go. And excuse me. And in the sections, I'm gonna have a primary section. Gonna add that description there. And I'm sorry if I'm coughing all over the mic. I was given COVID a couple weeks ago, and I'm struggling to speak correctly. So hopefully it's not too distracting or annoying. And I'll try to actually edit it out of the video if I can, but probably going to be difficult because I'm terrible at editing. So, oops. There we go. And let's just add the tertiary section real quick. And you know what? I'll also add the destructive section. Even though this isn't, I don't even think this is on my final implementation, but I think it is useful to have because it indicates like how buttons should be styled for things like if you want to delete your account or if you want to like remove something from a cart, etc., etc. It still uses the same primary, tertiary, secondary styling, but it has like a different logic. Well, not a different logic, just like a different rationale in terms of how they're defined. Like the tertiary isn't red, for example. So yeah, I went ahead and added those sections. What am I doing? Whoops. Let's head back to this one. So we save that. Something ain't right. Oh, there it is. Okay. So I forgot I had two containers on there. So first container, cool. We have all our sections defined. And now I need to actually add the button. So in the first section, I'm going to go ahead and import that button. So open up this tag, type button, click on that, and we can actually type in hello. And nothing worked. Why did nothing work? Nothing worked because we actually did not give it the ability to take in text and render it. So let's go ahead and do that. So back in our button component, what we want to do is we want the parameters here to be defined such that we can, well, actually, yeah. So we want to pass in the prop. So whatever gets passed into the button, we want to pass it down onto the button element, and we'll do so like this. So when I hit save, it doesn't work. Why does it not work? There we go. Okay, so I had to expand out the props. So there we go. Basically what this does is this like passes on anything that passes onto this button. We basically like just forward it down onto the button that we render. So there we go. We have a very basic button, and you'll see it's unstyled. It is a button, but it doesn't really have any like crazy stuff going on. And that's because we didn't define the variant specific styles. So before we keep like adding stuff into the actual component, what I want to do is I want to define the shape of the props. So the actual type for the button, props, excuse me. So in this case, we want to say that like the first, so we're going to like combine some types, right? So the first type is the base button props, right? And what this is this is just the, how do I say this? The stock, button. So like basically like whatever a stock basic HTML button looks like, these are the props that will get populated initially. And oops, that should be a single. There we go. And then on top of that, so what we're doing is we're not just like rendering a button. We're rendering a button with some special sauce, right? So at the end of like the render, like when this button gets returned, it's just a normal HTML button, right? But our button, our component, is a regular HTML button, so that's why we have these props here, plus some additional properties that are custom to our use case. And the property that we care about right now is the variant property. And that's the property that's going to dictate whether or not the button looks like a primary button with solid background, or whether it looks like a secondary button with outlines, etc., etc. So the way we're going to do that is after we define the base button type, we're going to then define just our button props. And since our component is called button, we're just calling it button props. So this this button props type is going to be equal to the base button props, and so this is like extending the base button props. In here, we're going to define an optional type called a variant, and this variant is going to be a enum or a union, which basically means it's going to be one of these three options. So it's either going to be a primary, it's going to be a secondary, or it's going to be a tertiary. So what this means is when we use the button, we're expecting the variant, if it's defined, so the question mark over here means this is an optional property. So if the variant property is defined, it should match one of these three options. What we want to do now is we want to assign the button props type to the button component. So the way we're going to do that is we're going to say that the button is of type React functional component with the, oh my god, I cannot type, button props type. And then in here, in our parameters, we're going to have variant be one of the parameters that gets passed in. But because this is an optional property, we do want to have a default setting. So we want variant to, if you don't define it, we want it to always be defined as something. And that something is going to be, you guessed it, primary. So what this means is variant will always be primary unless it is defined. So if the user types in, like in the variant property, if they pass in secondary, this will get overridden by the secondary. But if it's not defined at all, then it will always fall back to primary. So this is the default. So now that we have that, we need to actually use this variant. So to do that, what we're going to do is underneath the base classes, we're gonna create a function. I'm just going to call it generate variant classes. So this is going to take in the variant, which is a string. And inside of this function block, we are going to run this variant through a switch statement. So this switch statement is going to evaluate the variant property that we pass in. And if the variant is matches primary, which is the default, so if the variant is not defined, this will always run, right? So if the variant that's passed in is primary, then we're going to return. So what that means is, like, when generate variant classes runs, whatever is passed into this return will be returned by whatever executed this function. So in the return, we're going to return a string, and the string is just going to be the list of classes that are specific to the primary variant. So those classes are going to be border transparent, y padding of 3, text white, background emerald 500, and I'm choosing emerald just because green is my favorite color, and I want my primary buttons to be emerald by default. You can choose whatever color you want here. I would suggest looking at the Tailwind docs for their color options. Let's see, I said background emerald 500, and when the button is hovered over, we're going to make that emerald a darker color. So we'll say background emerald 600, so when it's hovered over. And then when it's focused on, we'll give it a ring of emerald 500. And I'm actually going to get rid of this break. And under the default, I'm just going to return a empty quotes, and I'll get rid of that break as well. So now that we have this function, I know there's two variants that I didn't define yet. I just want to show you what this is going to look like. So now that we have that defined, what we want to do is we want to generate the variant classes based on the extracted color props. So here we're going to define a variable called variant classes, and it's going to be equal to the output of this function and the variant that gets passed in, which is the same variant that gets passed into the button. Right now, the variant is going to be default, so it's going to return primary. But now we actually have to introduce a new package, and that package is tailwind-merge. So tailwind-merge, what it's going to do is it's going to basically it's going to take in an array of however many strings, and it's going to clean up that array, resolve any duplicates, and get rid of any incorrect definitions. It's a really handy package for what we're doing. So to install this, we're gonna excuse me, run npm I tailwind merge, and I'll take a little bit of time, maybe a second or two. Come on, buddy, you got this. Okay, so I'm just going to close my terminal again. And now that we have that installed, what we're going to do now is we are going to merge the base classes with the variant classes and any additional classes. So anything that we need to add in here, we will merge like so. So we're going to say const merged classes. I really hope I spelled that with two S's. Yep. And we're going to set this equal to tailwind-merge. So tw-merge. I'm going to go ahead and click on this to import it. So there you go. Import tailwind-merge from tailwind-merge. And in this function, I'm going to pass in an array of strings. The first string is going to be the base classes string. The second string is going to be variant classes, which is the output of the generate variant classes with the variant property passed in. Now I'm going to copy this variable, and I'm going to replace the class name equals base classes with class name equals merge classes. We're going to save, and there you go. There's our primary button. So now I'm just going to go back into App.tsx real quick, and I'm going to copy this. I'm going to go to, I'm going to go to secondary and paste that there. I'm going to replace this with, what did I call it in my, yeah, so we have default. So that's just the default coloring. So we'll just say default primary for now. And over here, we'll say default secondary. Save that. Let me minimize this. But I need to actually pass in that secondary variant. So you'll see that because we defined the variant prop on the button component, it now shows up in the IntelliSense, and it actually shows us what the options are. So variant can be primary, secondary, or tertiary. And this is like one of the benefits of TypeScript is that you get to have this autocomplete, and you get to have these like this like really nice IntelliSense, and you even get to have like auto documentation and stuff like that. So it's very, very handy. So let's see. So we have variant, and you'll see that it's saying, okay, type empty string is not assignable to primary, secondary, tertiary. So this is where, this is why it's like, this is another reason why it's valuable to use TypeScript, is that you get this like automatic error handling. So you get to define your stuff, and it makes sure that whoever's using your stuff is using it properly. So in this variant property, I'm going to pass in secondary. We're going to save, and you'll see that it got rid of those primary styles, but it didn't add the secondary styles because we didn't define them. So let's go ahead and do that. So we'll say case secondary, and in our return, we're going to pass in the string border 2. So this one is going to have a border with a thickness of 2. Border gray 200. We're going to give it a Y padding of 0.688 rem. And this is a pre-calculated value. It has to do with, it's basically compensating for like the extra border thickness. So that way when you have a primary button next to a secondary button, the secondary button's like ring isn't like a lot bigger than the primary buttons. So this is just a little like value that I calculated beforehand. It's a little hard coded, I know, but it just it just makes the secondary and primary buttons rings like look the same. Or sorry, their overall size look the same, excuse me. So now we're gonna add a hover pseudo selector. It's gonna be text white. So the text, when it's not hovered, is gonna be emerald 500, but when it's hovered, it'll turn white. And you might say, okay, well, when it's hovered, that means it's gonna disappear. And to that, I will say almost, but no, because when the button is hovered, two things are going to happen. The border is going to become emerald 500 to match the color of the primary button theme, but also the background is going to change to emerald 500. And the reason I changed the border to emerald 500 is just so it doesn't look like the secondary button has like this gray border and like this green base. This way it looks like when it's hovered, it just looks like the primary button. So we're changing both the border and the background when you hover. So we said hover background emerald 500, and when it's focused, we'll give it a ring emerald 500. So same as the ring in the primary. So I'm gonna go ahead and save that, and there you go. There's our secondary button. So there's those hover styles I was talking about. When it's not hovered, it has green text and a gray border. When it is hovered, it has white text, green border, and green background. So now let's go ahead and say case tertiary. Oops, press the page down button. So in this return, we're going to pass in the styles of border, border transparent, Y padding of 3. We're going to add an underline. We're going to add a ring offset of white. So what this means is when the button is focused, the ring offset color will be white, as opposed to what any other color might show up. And this is just basically a reset for when it's on a white background. When we introduce dark mode, this will be a different color. So we're going to also give it that hover styling. So when it's hovered on, the underline shows up. The color is going to be emerald 500. And when it's hovered, the color is going to be text emerald 700. So a little bit darker. And then when it's focused on, it'll have the same ring as before. I'm just going to copy that from here. So we copy that, and we pasta that, and we save, and nothing shows up because we don't actually have a tertiary button. So let's go ahead and add one. So I don't know why I'm copying the whole section. I just need the button. There we go. We copy the button, and in the tertiary section, I get rid of these divs, paste that there. I change this to tertiary, and then I'm just going to copy that, paste that there, change this T to capital T. Another thing that's useful is, like, let's say you want to uppercase something. So a little nifty thing that you can do in VS Code is, like, I can double click this word, I can hit Control Shift P, and I can type in capital case. Okay. Transform to title case, that's what's called. So transform to title case, and it'll automatically capitalize first letter. If I type uppercase, it'll capitalize all the things, which I don't want. But just a nifty little thing. So to do that again, Control Shift P and type case, and then you can do some case changing. So there we go. There's our tertiary button, looking dandy. So there's the ring that I was talking about. So if I click over here and if I tab, the ring will show up because it's focused on. If I click on it, it focuses on it. So that's the ring that I was mentioning, and looks a lot nicer than having a solid black border. So real quick, right before we finish this part, I'm just gonna duplicate all the buttons real quick. So Alt Shift down will duplicate this, and here I'm just gonna add the disabled property, and you can type disabled is true, or you can just pass in disabled, and because you passed in the property as empty, that just means that it's true since you're saying disabled exists. So if I hit save, it'll show the disabled variant, but this is disabled. There we go. So I'm going to do the same thing for the other two. So again, highlight this, Alt Shift down. I didn't actually have to highlight it. I could click anywhere and do that, but that's fine. And then here, because I'm lazy, I'm just going to paste that there. Paste that there, save. And last thing for tertiary, Alt Shift down to copy, disabled, and then disabled, not capitalized, lowercase, there we go, save. There we go. We have our button variants and both their default colors and their disabled colors. So now I want to add the functionality that allows us to provide some custom color tokens. So the idea here is, like, you might not want your users to be forced to use what you consider to be a good primary color. Excuse me. So in my case, I like green to be the primary color. But maybe someone wants to use, I don't know, amber or rose or fuchsia as their, I think I said that right, as their primary color, or they just have different colored buttons for different things in their app, and they need to be able to override them. So what we're going to do to implement that functionality is back in VS Code, head to your button.tsx file, and I am going to quickly hide my sidebar because I think it makes it a little hard to read. I'm going to zoom in a little bit because I think yeah, I think it's might be a little bit easier to read some of my code. Probably should have done this before, but no worries. So I'm just going to expand this a little bit. Excuse me. Okay, so what we're going to do to get that the color options in here, first thing we want to do is we want to define exclusive props for each one of the color, each one of the variants, right? Because you'll notice that, for example, in the primary, you have the background emerald 500, but that background emerald 500 only shows up when you're hovering in the secondary, right? So the different variants will require different props depending on, color props depending on the variant. So what we're going to do here is we're going to define three types. We're going to define the primary colors type, okay, and we're going to define the secondary colors type, and we're going to define the tertiary colors type. And for our primary colors, the colors that are going to change for primary buttons are going to be the background. So these are all going to be string. So I'll say background, the hover background, and the focus ring. And I'm just going to like grab this, paste that there. There we go. So primary buttons is defined. or primary colors is defined. I'm just going to grab this and paste that there. Instead of background, we're going to say text. We're going to keep hover border. I'm going to do Alt-Shift down to duplicate this because we're going to have the hover border property. And we're also, so text, hover border, hover background, and focus string. So these are all for the secondary colors. I'm going to copy paste this into tertiary, not outside tertiary. So for this one, we have the text, we have the hover text color, and then just the focus ring. There we go. So these are going to be the individual props that we're going to allow users to define to further customize their button components. So, and the reason I'm focusing on users is because this is a component library. You're writing code that you want other people to benefit from, or you yourself can benefit from. It's another valuable thing behind this tutorial is that, you're building something that you can build up on later, that you can use in your own projects later. So that's kind of the nice thing about doing tutorials where you're building things that are meant to be, used. In this case, that would be a component library. So now that we define the exclusive color props, just going to add that comment up here. So define exclusive color prop types for each variant. And that is prop types, not props types. Okay, so just going to save that. And now we actually have to use these prop types. Excuse me. So before we did have the button props taken, like it was basically extending the base button props, and then it was extending the base button props with the variant property. But because we want these properties, these props to be mutually exclusive, meaning if you use tertiary as your variant, you only want these options to be valid. What we're going to have to do is we're going to have to change this type definition up very slightly. So what we're going to do, I'm just going to change this from button props because these are no longer props. Right now we're defining the component itself. So we're going to say type button component. And instead of doing it like that where we had base button props, what we're going to do is we're going to have base button component be one of three kinds of combined props. So you're either going to have your button component be of type props, where props are the base button props, and the variant. Well, I can actually just copy this. There we go. So you're either going, I'm just going to Control X that and paste down there just to get it out of the way. So you're either going to have your button component be defined as props and, so basically your base button props, and like you're going to extend them with the variance property. This is optional because, this could be, we want variant to be optional, so that way primary is the default if you don't define a variant. And we want the other prop that will be evaluated here to be an object called colors. And in the case of primary, the colors object will be of type property colors. So what this means is if you have our type now is just the button component type, and this type is going to fulfill one of the following. It's either, and all of this is going to be a JSX element. JSX is JavaScript that is written in HTML form, which is basically this. So this is JSX, right? You see it as HTML, looks, smells, tastes, breathes like HTML, but in reality, and this will get compiled down to a JavaScript object before it gets used at build time. It's not super important because we're not going into the inner workings of React today, but that's basically like what JSX is. So what we're saying here is that the button component is going to be a JSX element with these, with these props, right? Or it's going to be a JSX element with the base button props and a variant of secondary, with a colors property of secondary colors. And you can kind of see where I'm going with this. So now we're going to add a third one. And this time it's going to be tertiary, and the colors are going to be tertiary colors. Now, a quick thing to note, the only variant option here that's going to be optional is the primary, because the idea here is if you don't define a variant, then it should be primary. But if you do define a variant, it must be property, secondary, or tertiary. So to do that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove these optionals for the secondary and tertiary, because you're either going to have essentially no variant or secondary and tertiary. And I should also mention that these are called overload signatures. So and I would recommend reading more about this from the TypeScript documentation. But basically, what the overload signatures do is they allow us to, I can never type component right the first time, component, there we go. It allows us to define our button component as multiple things. And the nice thing about this is that our button component will now have to be defined as this, or as this, or as this, and not and any of these. So you can't define a primary with secondary colors. You can't define a tertiary with primary colors. It's going to have to be all of this, or all of this, or all of this. And this will make a lot more sense later on, but I really wanted to include this in the tutorial because I think this functionality is phenomenal, and it took me a very long time to discover it. And when I discovered it, I was like, oh my gosh, this is awesome, because this does allow you to really like make super dynamic component definitions, whereas the alternative would have been like to define 3 individual components if you want like complete type safety, that is. So if you want to like leverage like TypeScript to its full extent, then this is a very, very useful feature of TypeScript. So this button is now going to be of type button component. And now, because of our new property called colors, we want to pass in the colors, but we want to make it by default an empty bracket. And the way this is going to work is basically, what we're going to say is, when you pass in the colors, and you get to the generate variant classes. Now what we want to do is we want to pass in both the variant and our color overrides, because that's what these colors are. So by default, we don't have any color overrides. Our color, even if we do define colors, unless we add in those colors, because remember, these are all optional, right? So unless we add in those color overrides, we still want the default colors to persist. But if we do define color overrides in here, then this empty bracket will get replaced with whatever we define. And in order to use those, what we want to do is in our generate variant classes, now we're not just going to take the variants, we're also going to take color props of any. So we're passing in those color properties into the generate variant classes here. And I am saying any, I need to change my ESLens configuration because it doesn't like when I use any. This is the default VTSLens configuration, but I don't really agree that we should restrict using any, because sometimes it's necessary, especially with dynamic stuff. So to get rid of that error, we're going to go into ESLens, and in the rules, we're going to add TypeScript dash ESLens slash no explicit, oh my god, I cannot type, any, and we're going to set this to off. There we go. So we save that. I'm going to close this, Control W, and now this is no longer giving us that no explicit any error. We are still getting the error because we're not using the color props, but we will resolve that right now. So in order to do that, we're going to need to change the structure of this return statement. So rather than it being a normal string, I'm going to hit Control D over here to select both of these quotes. And then I'm going to replace these with a backtick. And what this does is this allows us to craft a string programmatically. So what that means is right now I am just returning this string as is, but I want to have some more dynamic strings that get returned in here as well. So to show you what that looks like for the primary, we said we wanted to make the background an overridable property. So what that means is we're going to have to replace this with I'm going to put this text after you change the backtick. So this won't work if you try to use the normal quotes. This will only work if you use the backticks. So I'm going to do some string interpolation, which is where you pass in logic into a string. So to do that, I surround this in a curly bracket and I add a $sign to the front of it. And now it's screaming at me because it's like, whoa, what is this variable? Well, that's okay. Because what we're going to do here is we're going to return the string. But now this doesn't make any sense because now we're just, back to what we were doing before. Except what we're going to do is we're actually going to pass in the color props that gets passed into this function dot .bg, so dot .background, or the background emerald 500. So what this is, it's a very, very shorthand if statement that basically says when the user passes in the variant of primary and the color props, what this is going to do is when it gets to the case primary and it gets to the return statement and it gets to this part of the interpolated string, it's going to say, okay, if color props.bg exists, then I'm going to return that string here. But if it doesn't exist, then I'm going to return the fallback, which is the default background emerald 500. So let me show you what that looks like. Back in App.tsx, I'm going to create a new primary button. And here, I'm going to add the colors object. Wait, was it color or colors? I think it was colors, yeah. And here I'm going to add a background. Okay, I don't know why I started screaming. Of BG Amber 500. Yo, why are you screaming at me? JSX expressions. Oh, because it's an object, so first you open up a curly bracket, then I have to actually pass in the object. So now it's going to stop screaming at me. So now what I'm saying is override the background color with background amber 500. So when I hit save, you'll see the default primary shows up with the background amber 500. So I am going to change this from default to amber, and I'm going to move it underneath the disabled one. Looks a little cleaner that way. There we go. So now the hover color is still the standard one, which is fine, because the way we're going to get around that is we're going to pass in the, I'll get to this one later actually, because we still haven't finished the switch statement. So let's go ahead and finish the switch statement first, and then we can go in and start adding in all those crazy colors. So back in the switch statement, you're going to want to also change the hover background emerald. So I'm going to add this inside of a curly brace. And then in front of this curly brace, $sign, put all this in a quote. And here we're going to do, I'm just going to copy this. So we're going to do this, paste that there, but it's going to be now hover BG. So when you pass in the hover BG, it's going to be whatever you pass in or this. Save that. And, well, I'm just going to copy pasta this over here. And I'm going to cut this focus, story of my life, paste that there. And then here we'll say focus ring. Save. And there we go. So now we can, now we have our variable primary. So now let's do the same thing with the secondary and the tertiary. So I'm just going to cut this, add a backtick, paste that. And tell you what, I'm just going to go ahead and do the same thing that I did over here. Well, I'm actually just going to paste in the code because that might be a little easier. And I want you to go and pause once I get this pasted in. Just take a second. Yeah, I'll just pause it, paste in the whole switch statement. And just go ahead and pause, copy all this over, and you should be good to go. So there we go. Save that. Go ahead and pause, write all this out, make sure you don't have any errors, and then we'll move on. Okay, so once you have that done, head back into your App.tsx, and now what we want to do is we want to start adding in some of those color options. So we already added the initial amber one, and we need to finish up the styling for this. So we're going to start typing hover, and you'll see that the autocomplete actually shows up because of those type definitions. So we have hover background, and for this one it's going to be hover BG amber 600. Save that. So now you see when you hover, it has that darker amber color. And we're going to do the same thing with the focus. So you see the focus is still green over here. We need to change that to amber as well. So we'll say focus, ring, and we'll say focus, ring, amber 500. And because of how we define this, you are going to Tailwind doesn't like it when you add like smaller classes. So you're probably wondering like, why do we have to like define this every time when it just needs like this? And that's because Tailwind warns against dynamically crafting class names. It has to do with like optimization and stuff like that. So I trust them. It's best to go with what they recommend since, well, they are the developers. They did create it. So at a future date, if they make dynamic class names a thing, then we can, we can start doing it that way. So actually, I'm not going to do all the different color variations. Instead, I'm going to do the secondary and tertiary first. So underneath here, we'll do, amber secondary. And for this one, it was text, and it was text amber 500. It was also hover border, and the hover border was, I'm just going to copy this since it's basically the same thing, but it's hover border amber 500. There we go. I don't know why it's screaming at me. Hover border amber 500. Hover background focus ring. Why are you yelling? Oh, it's yelling because I don't have, it's expecting primary classes since primary is default. See, that's TypeScript at work. So we're going to go ahead and add, we're going to add variant of secondary, and now it goes away because there we go. So there's our secondary one, and yo, that that border kind of looks wonky. That's because we have a 600 here. We need to have this be a 500. There we go. I don't know why I hovered over the wrong one there for a second. So now let's do the same thing for the tertiary. So we're going to copy this. We're going to paste it down here. I'm going to change this to tertiary. It's going to scream at us because this does not exist under tertiary. Under tertiary, we actually have the text, hover text. So this is hover text. And that means that this should be changed from hover border to hover text, amber 700. And we don't need the hover background, but we do need the focus ring. So this looks correct. So we save that, and now we have our tertiary option. Okay, so real quick, what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit Control B to hide that my sidebar. I really should make a better habit of hiding it because I feel like it ruins the tutorial sometimes. So what I want to do is just going to copy this comment here, and this is just for, your documentation purposes. So this is a primary color override buttons. Cool. So I'm just going to add the rest of the examples, and because I use the same color tokens for the most part, it's a pretty straightforward thing. So let's see, we had rose, fuchsia, indigo, and Twitter blue. This one's going to be a fun one because it's a little bit different. So let's just go ahead and copy these down. So to do that again, I'm going to select all this. I'm going to hit Alt-Shift down. So that's the rose, fuchsia, indigo, Twitter blue. I'm just going to change the these things over here. This one was, whoops. This one was it rose first? I think it was, yeah. So rose, fuchsia, indigo, Twitter blue. So we had rose. Always forget how to spell this. F-U. No, not F-U. Sorry. F-U-C-H-S-I-A. Yeah, there we go. Fuchsia, indigo, and Twitter blue. The Twitter blue one is going to be interesting. So I am going to quickly change up the color. So if I actually save this, it's not going to look good. It's going to be like all amber. So to change that, in the first one, in the amber button, God, I cannot speak. In the rose button, I'm going to double click rose. I'm going to hit Control D twice, and I'm going to type rose, and that lets me change in place. So now we have the rose color, and we retain the same 500, 600, 500 color variants. So now we'll do the same thing for fuchsia. So F-U-C-H-S-I-A, there we go. So now we have the fuchsia button. Now we need the indigo. And the last one is going to be a funky one because Twitter blue is not a tailwind color. It is a hex color though. And I think I stole this from the brand colors. Or actually, no, I went to Twitter, or X now, I guess, and I console inspected, and I just like yoinked the hex codes. So for like the button styling. So basically, what we want to do here is we want to pass in the hex code. So the way to do that is you replace the color token with a open square bracket and then the hex code. So the hex code here is 1DA1F2. There we go, Twitter blue. Need to add the hover color. So I am just going to copy and paste this. Well, no, not there. We'll do this. So there we go. But the hover color, I cannot speak. The hover color is actually 1A8CD8. And then the focus ring color is the same. So there we go. Now we have the Twitter blue button. So I'm going to go ahead and do this for the secondary and the tertiary as well. And yeah, feel free to pause and just copy these over because I don't think it's worth the tutorial time for you to watch me struggle to type things. So I am going to paste those in real quick. Okay, so make sure you copy these over, and once you get that done, we can start moving on to the next piece. And while we're here, I am just going to paste in the last section, which is the destructive buttons. So go ahead and copy these in as well. So it is this stuff right here from line 196 to 233. So these are the destructive variants that I was telling you about earlier. So yes, I'm sure I want to delete this, unsubscribe and cancel. Just a nice little thing to tie a bow on top. The next component that we're going to get into is the card component. And for the card component, so this is our final product. So for the card component, we actually have two variants. There's the content card, which is exactly what it sounds like. It just you pass in content in here and it displays it. There's options for like adding a header and a footer or both. And then there's the BlockLinkCard. And both of these cards, they both use the same card container. It's like a wrapper that goes around it, which provides like the base like outside properties, but then the internals of the cards are like pretty drastically different. This card is, like I said, specifically for displaying content, whereas this card is for like linking to things. We're going to design it in such a way that right now it's going to take in anchor tags, but once we introduce routing, we'll actually open this up so that you can pass in like technology specific routing. So like if you're using React Router, you can pass in the React Router link component. If you're using Next.js, you can pass in the Next.js link component, and so forth and so on. So yeah, let's go ahead and get started with building this one. So what we want to do, similar to how we created a new button file in the library folder, we're going to create a card.tsx file. And I am going to go ahead and close out some of these open editors that I have. So I'm going to close container. I don't need it. I don't need Navbar anymore. I don't need section anymore. And I don't need layout anymore. And yeah, I can close button as well. So all that we need right now open is the app and card. So I'm gonna hit Control B to hide my Explorer view, and I'm gonna go ahead and get started with creating this this card component. So let's go ahead and type RAFC, and that's going to initialize a React arrow function component. Get rid of this top line because we don't need it. And our card is well. Let me actually take a step back. So our card is, this is not going to be a single component. This is going to actually be three components. So we're going to have, I'm just going to type RAFC again. Whoa, hello there. Let's try that again. Content card and RFC block link card. I'm just going to Control D, Control Shift K, and that gets rid of both of those. For this one up here, we're going to call this the card container. And both of these cards are going to be wrapped in the card container. So I guess we can start with this piece up here. So for our card container, we want to go ahead and define the type for the props, excuse me. So define the props that's accepted by the card container. All right, so we have the card container props, and the card container is really just going to be a div. So we will initialize this with the HTML attributes. Yeah, there it is. And this is going to be of HTML div element. Well, not a question mark. There we go. So yeah, now for the card container, we will define its type as React functional component. Whoops. With the card container props. And this one is going to take in, so because this is going to be a wrapper, it is going to take in a class name property, which will be used to extend its classes. And no, we don't need a question mark there. What am I doing? And we're going to need a children property, which will be used for rendering the things that it's wrapping, which will be either the content card or the BlockLink card, or in a future example, really the card container can be used for like showing anything with the same like basic outline of a card. So it's think of it like the paper component from Material UI, kind of, more or less. So inside of the component, we're going to define the base classes. So this is going to look very similar to what we did before, where we define base classes as a string. You'll recognize this from the button. So the base classes are going to be a rounded border. For now, while we only have light mode, it's going to have a background of white, and we're going to give it a shadow of small so that it kind of looks like elevated above its background. Since we are going to be passing in class names, we're going to go ahead and define our merged classes as we did before. So we're going to need to import. Hello. There we go. Yo. Okay, that really should be interesting. Is it not tailwind-merge? Am I tripping? I must be tripping. I don't know why it's not auto-completing, but I guess we'll import it manually. So import tailwind-merge from tailwind-merge. Now, is that so hard? I don't know why it wasn't importing automatically, but there we go. And it's going to take in the base classes and whatever class names we pass in to the component. And inside of this div, whoa, hello there. Oh, so I should say this one's going to be a little bit different because with this card container, it's going to actually be two divs. The first div is going to be a sizing div, but we're not going to add this. We're not going to add the variation to the sizing yet. So like we'll keep that like as a TBD, I guess. But for now, it's going to have the class names of width full and max width x small. And what this means is it will fill up its container up to the limit of x small. We are going to introduce a little bit of functionality in a little bit that will allow us to dynamically change the max width, so that way like you can you can like explicitly define what the max width you want is. But for now, this should be fine. So this is going to, like I said, define the extents of the card width, and it'll take in whatever other props are passed in. And this basically just like if there's like any div specific props that you want to pass into this component, this is where they'll get put. Sorry, was looking for the word there. So now in the second div, this is where we want to pass in these rounded XL, border, background white, shadow small classes, and any other classes that get passed into the component. So instead of the classes getting passed in here, this one's going to be explicitly for the width of the component. And then inside of it, that's where anything that's specific to the actual like display of the card, that's where that will get passed in. So we'll type class name equals merged classes, and then in here we will pass in the children. So I'm wondering why I have an error here because I didn't actually pass in the props. So silly me. Props. There we go. So these are the rest of the props. Some people like to type rest of props, but I just like to do props. So you can see there's a ton of props associated with the div element. So that's what that means, is like everything else, everything else from the HTML div element. So there we go. That's our card container. Now, if I actually add this, well, I can show y'all what it would look like if I add it, which I'll do real quick. So, maybe not. We'll just skip to the actual like meat and bones of this part, because this doesn't really have anything exciting. It's going to be a whole lot of nothing because there's nothing inside of it. So we'll go ahead and define the content card, and then we'll add that to the app. So for the content card, in terms of our props, let me just add a little bit of comments over here. So this type of card is for displaying content. I know, super revolutionary terminology there. So inside of the content card, we're going to define the props as title, subtitle. Did I spell subtitle right? Yeah, I did. Plain text. You can call this whatever you want. This is just what made sense to me. So the title is this thing right here. Obviously, subtitles right here. The plain text is this thing right here. And then the link is, didn't mean to click that, but that's the link, which as you can see, works like a link. So here we'll put a link, and then we want to also pass in the children. So if in the case that we don't want to add any of these, and we only want to pass in children, well, this is what's going to allow us to do that. So I'm going to deviate a little bit from what y'all are used to, what y'all might be used to at this point in terms of how I define types, or how I define the props, excuse me, where I define it as a type above the component. And that's because for this kind of component, we don't have to do anything crazy. We can just they're very basic like types. So I'll do them like this. So our title is optional and it's of type string, and then string. And I'll tell you what I'm going to do. Save some time. I'm going to copy all this here. I'm going to get rid of the commas. So I just hit Control D a bunch of times. Do a question mark, colon, string, duplicate a title, whoops. And actually for the link, this is going to be an object. And the object is going to take in a URL, which is a string, and text, which is a string. And I'm making both of these required. So what this means is if the link is optional, but if you define the link, then both these are required. So these are only required insofar as the link is provided, or the link object is defined. If there's no link added, then these will not be required. And the reason I'm making both these required is because you can't really have a link that goes anywhere, and also you can't really have a link that doesn't have any text, because otherwise you'll just have nothing. So that's why both these are required. And then children is optional because you might not want to pass in elements inside of this. And this is going to be of type React node. So React dot hello, not that, React.React node. There we go. So now let's go ahead and start actually adding things to the component. So for the outer div, let me just get rid of this. Open a parentheses, and we're going to type div. The outer div is going to have a flex box. That is a flex column, which means that everything inside will be stacked vertically. Going to give it a padding of 4. And at the medium breakpoint, we'll change that padding to 5. Okay. Inside here, this is where if we have a title, so title, so what this shorthand means is if the title exists, no, not $sign. Yikes, I don't even know where the ampersand is. There we go. So what this means is if the title exists, then render this h3 tag. Font bold, text gray, 800. So you'll see the nice thing about JavaScript and, well, I guess TypeScript technically, is that you get access to all these nifty shorthand. So you don't have to write this crazy if statement block, 4 or 5 lines just to do what you can do otherwise in just 1 line. So what this means is technically what this translates to is if this is true and this is true, when you, let's say you want to just render the title or you want to render this, then you would first if the title is true, then it would render the title. And if you wanted to do an or, you would do not that. Lord, I have no accuracy today. You would do 2 pipe characters. So this would mean either this. So this first has to be satisfied, this condition has to be satisfied. If it's not satisfied, then this one. And you can do this ad infinitum, so you can just keep adding conditions. But when you do and, this means that this has to exist. And if this exists, then this gets shown. So this doesn't get rendered. Rather, this gets checked for being truthy, and then this gets rendered. There is no else statement. It just won't, like, none of this will show up. None of this will show up if the title doesn't exist. So that's kind of what that means. So it's nice because we don't have to have like a like in the past, what like me and I guess a bunch of other people used to do is something like this, where you do like, if title is true, then do this, otherwise do null, but then you just have a bunch of nulls all over the page. So this is a lot cleaner because this way it's just like, if it's there, then do it, no else. So we'll do the same thing with the subtitle. The subtitle is going to be, here, I'll just control D this, so subtitle. Now the subtitle is going to be a paragraph tag. And for the subtitle, we want to add some padding up top. So we're going to add an MT1. So, sorry, not padding, margin, excuse me. Up top, we're going to give it a X small size. We're going to make it font medium. And we want it to be uppercase. And we also want the text to be a little bit more muted. So we'll give it a text 500, text gray 500, excuse me. So that's the subtitle. Save that. And the next one is more of the same. So instead of title, this one's going to be plain text. And for this one, we're going to have the, oh, there. Oh, yeah, I'll just grab these classes since it's more close to this than it is the title. So for this one, this is a paragraph, but the margin top is actually margin top of 2, text gray 800, not 500. And I can actually get rid of the rest of these because we're not actually using them. We're just using regular font and regular text size. So we'll save that. And then if you pass in children, this is where they'll appear, underneath the plain text. I do not know how to spell today. There we go, children. If you added the link, I'm just going to copy the subtitle real quick. So if you added a link, then in here, instead of a P tag, you'll have an A tag. And in the A tag, it's actually going to have a margin top of 5. This is going to have an inline flex property. The flex box is going to be item center. So item center is vertical centering, not horizontal centering. Gap 2, so if you put like a bunch of things in here, they'll be separated with a spacing of 2. This is going to be text small. Font medium is right, and for the text, we'll do text emerald 500. Get rid of the uppercase. And since this is a link, I'm pretty sure it has a hover. Yeah, it has a hover over property. So I'll grab this. Whoa. Grab that. Jeez. And I'll type hover, colon, that. As for the place this is going to, this is going to be at href equals, not quotes, it's going to be equals bracket, link.url. So I should also change the subtitle to link. So there we go. So if the link exists, then it will have the link.url in the href, and the text that will be displayed is the link.text. Should probably scroll down a little bit. There we go. Cool. So now let's go ahead and give this bad boy a try. So back in App.tsx, we're going to go to this other section that we had created, and I'm just going to copy pasta all of this like text. So we had the container, so I'm going to get rid of this title. Actually, tell you what, I'm going to get rid of this container and this container. That way we're like kind of doing it from scratch. So we're going to have a container, and this container is going to have a title that has the text card from here, and it's going to have the description of that. Why is it screaming at me? it's screaming at me because it doesn't have any children. So in here, I need to add a section. Close that. This section is going to have a title, and that title is going to be simple. And it's going to have this description. So save that. It's screaming at me because it doesn't have any kids. It doesn't have any kids. It doesn't have any children. Excuse me. So let's add one. So I'm going to add a comment. By the way, the shorthand for adding a comment is Control /. I realized I probably should have said that before, so sorry. So we'll just indicate this is a simple card. And inside of here, we'll add a content card, which we'll need to import. So when I click on this, it'll import. If you don't know how to do that, if you haven't been able to do that, this is the import line. So now that we imported the content card, we need to define its properties. So if I actually close this and I just say, hi, mom, then, oh, this is the wrong, this is the finished build. Here's the one that we're building right now. So if I do hi, mom, you'll see like it does have the card. It's full width. And, wait, what am I saying? Oh, wait, I forgot something. Uh-oh. Well, that's awkward. Well, nothing better than finding bugs in the middle of the tutorial. So remember how we built this card container? Yeah, we were supposed to use that. So what we're gonna do, it's not a big deal, but it's gonna be really, really simple. And this is why it's nice to like build components, because like, you know, you can just do things like this. So to add this card container wrapper, I just cut that stuff so it's in my clipboard. So add the card container, paste that there, and now we have a card that says, hi, mom. So this is what it would look like if you pass in children, but we don't want to pass in children. We want to pass in, oh gosh, excuse me. We want to pass in actual content. So the content that we are going to pass in is going to be copied from over here. So this is going to be a title. Okay, not that. A title. I don't know why it gives me that option. A subtitle. Sometimes I wish it would default and just add all the properties like this. There's probably an extension for that. Plain text. And a link. And the link is going to contain a URL. I'm tripping. This is an object, so it has to be an open bracket and then another open bracket. It's going to have a URL. Because you can't see it on the page. Dude, where is my hashtag? Okay, there it is. It's the downside to never learning what the special character placements are. And then text. It's going to be card link. And I'm just going to copy pasta all of these things. So card title goes in here. I don't know why it keeps adding an extra line. Card subtitle goes in there. It doesn't really need to have been uppercased. I am actually going to write it normal because we have the class name that makes it uppercase. So you could technically do this lowercase if you want. It'll still show it as uppercase. I'm going to add this to the plain text. We're going to save that. I'm going to head back to the other one. There we go. This is our local build. There you go. There's our simple card. Now we are missing a few things that we need in order to have the card, or to give the card the functionality where it has a header and a footer. So let's go ahead and add that in now. So go back to card.tsx, and inside of the content card, well, actually at the props, or these are the parameters and these are the prop types. So in terms of the, well, I guess they are props. So in here, we're going to add a header and a footer. And let's go ahead and add these above the title. So I don't know why I just highlighted both of those. So I think Alt Shift up. Ooh, that's so cool. Okay, so duplicated those. I'm just gonna Control double click header. We'll select it. Control double click footer. We'll select one. So now I have both of these selected independently. Control C. I'm gonna hit double click on this title. Hit Control D to select the next instance. So now I have two of these selected. And Control V. It's a little nifty trick from VS Code. So if I select two things here, and then I select and I copy them, select two things here, paste them, it'll paste them in those two places. So it's a nice little trick, save you some time. Now inside of the card container, I'm going to, right above the div with the flexbox, I'm going to actually add in the header. So the header is going to look like this. You're going to have a open bracket. I am confusing myself right now. Yeah, I'm just going to, whoa, too many things. I'm just going to grab this, paste it there, and then here, same thing, header, but it's a little bit different because it's not an H3, it's a paragraph, and, well, to be honest, it's more akin to this paragraph tag, so I probably am just confusing you, so sorry about that. Paste that there. So this is going to have a margin top at the top. The text is going to be small. Well, small. I don't know what MS is. And text grade 500. I don't want I almost said uppercut. I don't want uppercase, and I don't want font medium, so I can get rid of those. Then I'm going to save it. But I actually, well, yeah, I might as well do that now. So I'm going to get rid of this paragraph. I'm going to cut this, not get rid of it. And I'm going to add a div. And why is there a dispatch event? That's weird. I'm going to add a div. And this div is going to, oh, it's not going to let me do it because it's an interpolated thing. So I actually have to type in div like that. So in this div, you can add the class name of rounded. And this is going to be a basically the top border of the card. So it's going to add like a top portion that's also going to be rounded. So this is going to be rounded top XL border B. So the top of the card will be rounded, and it'll have a border at the bottom of the header. And the background of the header is going to be gray 100, so very light gray, with X padding of 4 and Y padding of 3. The medium breakpoint, it'll have a, I don't know what I was just typing, it'll have a X padding of 5, and at the medium breakpoint, it'll have a Y padding, Lord, of 4. There we go. And then inside this div, that's where we'll paste that paragraph tag that has the margin top of 1, text small, text grade 500. Save that. So there's our header. And I'm actually going to copy this whole thing. And then at the bottom, right after this div, and right before the card container closes, I'm going to replace these header variables with, I don't know why I typed an A, with the footer. And the footer, instead of being rounded top, it's going to be rounded bottom. It's going to have a top border, a top border of the footer, not the card. So it'll make sense in a second. Same background color, same padding value, so all that's good. Margin top of 1, text small, text gray 500. Perfect. So I'm going to save that. And back in, let me look at my notes real quick. Yep, back in App.tsx, we're gonna add another content card. So I'm just gonna copy this. Well, I'm gonna hit Alt Shift down just to duplicate it. Add some space over here for readability purposes. And here I'll just say simple card with, wait, is this a section? Yeah, this is supposed to be a section, not this. So let me undo that. So I'm gonna actually click this or select this whole thing, Alt Shift down, because the way I did it in the in my final example is I made this one section. So I guess now that I have it here, I'll go ahead and start copying these things over. So I'll just change this comment to simple card with header, and then we'll duplicate this. and I'll say simple card with footer. I am going to change these titles and descriptions real quick, so just copy this over. Again, this is from my final build, so you're just going to have to, oh, yikes. You're going to have to like pause and copy this, which is fine because this is YouTube and videos can be paused. There we go. Okay, so go ahead and pause and copy this title and description over. And once you get that done, we'll go over here into this first content card, add a header. The header is going to contain the word featured, and save that. And then the second one, instead of header, I'm just going to copy that, paste that there, and I'm going to change this to footer. And then the footer is going to have the text last updated 5 mins ago. Save that. And going to head back to my actual build. And there you go. There's the simple header and footer card. So now we can move on to the block link. All right. So back in the card.tsx, let's go ahead and start creating this block link card. So I am just going to grab, does this take in children? It does take in children. I'm going to grab this whole thing, even though we're not going to use all of it, and I'm going to paste it. Well, I probably should open up a bracket first. Paste that there. I think I have an extra bracket somewhere. Yeah. I also have an extra arrow. All that's extra. There we go. Wait. Am I missing something? I'm missing an arrow. Jeez. There we go. Okay. So in the block link card, I don't need the header. I don't need the footer. All I need is the URL, the text, and the children. So that is conveniently almost everything needs to get wiped out. So there we go. I'm going to keep these two just because I'm lazy. I'm a lazy boy today. And I'm going to double click on this, control, double click on this. Now I have both these selected. Control C, control click, double click on this, control double click on this, control V. So the block link card is going to take in a URL, so the link to where it's going to go to. It's going to take in the text, so the text display for the block link. And then the children will be used to render like geez, I cannot speak. Well, it'll make sense in a second. So I do realize that I have some errors going on here. And I think that's because I'm missing a curly brace. Yikes. There we go. So now that error's gone. Let me actually go ahead and fix these. These are both optional properties, believe it or not. And children is actually a mandatory property. So we'll just add some comments over here. So children means that will be rendered inside the card. And this is going to be the text content to displayed inside the card. And then here we'll say URL for the link. If none provided, default to hashtag, whatever that actually is. All right. So now inside the component, we need to do a few things. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to define the link classes. So these are the classes specific to the link. This is of type string, not sting. And this is going to be a flex box that has a flex column. It's going to be vertically centered with a padding of 6. And when it's at a small screen size, it increases to a padding of 10. Now, so those are the classes. The content, though, is going to be, and this is like an interesting technique within React. So I can actually, instead of defining like a function here, I can actually define some like JSX that I'll then use. So in here, I'm going to open up a fragment, a React fragment, because I'm going to have two things. I'm going to not have the letter P. Oh my gosh, I cannot type. The curly brace right next to the P, sorry. I'm going to have the children, so whatever gets passed inside the block link will get rendered first, and then underneath, I keep doing that, underneath that, we'll have the text. Where's the and? There it is. So if the text exists, then we'll render a paragraph that will contain the text, and this paragraph will have a class name of margin top of 2 and medium font. So now let's actually use this. So the BlockLink card, the way it's going to look, or the way it's going to be structured, that's a curly brace. That's closing. There we go. I don't look at my keyboard when I type, so that's why I make so many mistakes, because I have sausage fingers and I don't know what I'm doing. So the BlockLink card is going to be wrapped in a card container, but it's actually going to extend the card container. So remember how we had defined the card container to take in class names? So this is where we're going to put that to good use. So because it might not be obvious, but let me show you the final version. So it's kind of hard to tell because of the brightness of my screen, to be honest, but it actually might show up in the recording. Yeah, I have my contrast set up like super weird, so I can't see it, believe it or not. But yeah, so you can see how it's kind of, you have that hover over effect. It's more obvious in the dark mode version that will be introduced in the next video. But this is where we're going to extend the card container classes to have that, that hover over background color change effect. So we're going to add the class name of text gray 800. So this is going to override nothing. It's just yeah, it's just saying that whatever text is going to be in here is going to be 800, and this is just to save us from having to like put it over here, because we could have like other children that we pass in here, like the SVG. We want that to be rendered with the same color as the text. So we're going to have a gray text. We're going to also, it's funny that I'm typing this first, but what this is, the transition colors. So with Tailwind, you can introduce CSS transitions, and you can indicate what excuse me, what CSS properties you want to have a transition applied to them. So in this case, when we do transition dash colors, like if we did transition all, anything that changes will have the transition applied to it. In our case, we only want to have a transition on the colors. So we're going to do transition colors and then hover BG gray 200 with an opacity of 50. And what this means is when we hover over the card container, it's not going to like immediately change to gray. It's going to fade into gray. And then when you hover off of it, so when you move your cursor off of it, it'll hover back. And then if you want to like change the hover duration, you can literally just type duration and then like choose an option. We don't want to do that. We're just going to use the default duration, which I think is like 150 milliseconds. Yeah, 150 milliseconds. It'll actually say it right here. Yep, 150 milliseconds, excuse me. So inside the card container, because this is a link, we're going to have a anchor tag. I don't know why I did that. Let's do a dot. And the href is going to be a conditional. So we're either going to use the URL, or remember how we said over here that it'll default to this if it's not available. So I'm actually going to copy that, and I'm going to say that if the URL is provided, then it'll link to the URL. Otherwise, it will use just an empty hash. And what this does is it's just like, this just means like where I'm at right now. So it'll just like take it to the top of the page, most likely. Now we also want to add, instead of class name, we want to pass in, what am I doing? Whoa, hello. Oh, no, everything's crazy. We're going to pass in link classes, and inside of the anchor tag, we're going to render this link content. There we go. Now I realize I could have just pasted this in here directly, but I'm lazy and I'm not going to. So we're just going to leave it like this. And there is one last thing. So I personally don't like it when the link, when you click on a link that goes somewhere outside of your page, because that's really what the link card is for. I don't like it when you click on a anchor tag and it takes you to the link directly. I prefer it to open it up in a new tab, personally. And you might differ, so you might want to add this as an option if you don't want this behavior. But for me, I like to have that be default and the only option. So I'm going to add a target property here, and I'm going to do _blank. And what this means is when you click on the anchor link, it will send you, it'll open up a new tab and send you to that link in a new tab, as opposed to the one that you're currently on, which is nice if you don't want people to navigate away from your page. So I think that's it for the block link. Let me just add a comment over here. We'll say this type of card is for providing block links. That makes no sense, but this is not a grammar tutorial. So let's go ahead and add the section with the block links. So I'm just gonna, this one's shorter. So I'm gonna copy pasta this, Control C, underneath this section, Control V, and I am gonna go to my other build and just copy this text over. So feel free to pause and do that if you wish. So we'll say block link, and then we'll grab this text and paste it right there. So in here, we'll just, well, we're not going to have a content card, actually. So we're going to go backspace that. And we're going to say BlockLinkCard, press enter. So that should have imported it. So there you go. It imported it. If it didn't, make sure you type this in here. Go ahead and pause and do that if you don't have it imported yet. Otherwise, let's go ahead and finish with this BlockLink card. So we're going to have two. The first one is going to be Vite. It's going to go to the Vite documentation. And the second one is going to go to the Next.js documentation. And you can mix and match these, add more if you want, do what you want to do, go wild with it. For me, these are the only ones that I feel like doing for myself. Let me finish this one off and then I'll do this. So for the block link, this is going to take us to, the URL, and I am way too lazy to like type it manually, so I'm just going to click on this, copy that, and paste that there. Pause and write that if you want to. You can also just not do anything and it'll be a dead link, which is fine. And then for the text, we'll put Vite. Now to get the icon to show up, I'm going to actually need to import I'm gonna need to import from simple icons. So we'll say import simple icons Vite from React icons /si. And while I'm here, because I don't feel like scrolling back up in a second, I'm also going to import simple icons next .js. You have to spell out the dot. And I'm just going to copy that, come down here, and I'm going to add this component, which is really just a icon. And I'm going to give it a class name of height of 10 and width of 10. Close that quote, save it, go back to my build, and there you go. There's the Vite card. So if I click on this, does it take us to the link? It does. Very nice. Okay, so now let's go ahead and add the Next.js one. So I'm just going to copy this, paste that there. Oh, do I remember what the link is off the top of my head? Let's see. Nextjs.com. .org. It's probably .org. Next.js. Now let's add this icon. What was it again? Next. There we go. Next.js. Save that. Lucky number. Nice. Okay, so it took us to that one, and it's looking good. So there we go. Now we are done with our cards. So we are actually in the final stretch of the tutorial, thank goodness. And that means we are going to now create the inputs. Thankfully, the inputs is super simple, so we'll just sprint through that real quick. I'm going to grab this container. This is the card container. Paste that there, and I'm just going to like get rid of the content cards inside because we don't want those there. I am keeping the comments because I'm lazy and hitting Control / is way too much work. I'm just going to remove these real quick. Always copy paste if you can, unless it's plagiarism, then don't. So we have our container. I'm just going to put this text in here real quick just to get it out of the way. So we have our input. And by the way, like I get this text from the, I believe it's the ARIA design patterns page, which is a very useful resource if you want to like understand like good accessibility design. So yeah, I'm not taking credit for any of these captions. This is a whole lot of copy pasta. So we have 3 different variants for the inputs. We just have like a basic input, disabled styling. We have an input with a label and an input with a description. And yeah, so I'm just gonna copy all these over real quick. I don't know why I'm repeating myself. So there we go. Let's see, this is a section with a label. There you go. I'm just gonna type this because it's not saving me that much time. Inputs with a label. And then this one down here is going to be description. And then inputs with a description. Save. I am going to add periods though because it looks tacky when I don't. There we go. Now let's actually create the input component. So there we go. We have a bunch of empty previews. So let's go ahead and open up our file explorer. I can close the card.tsx, and under, even though I just opened it again, under library, I want to type input.tsx, close card.tsx again, and let's go ahead and create this. So RAFC to create a React arrow function component. And if you don't feel like downloading the extensions, that's fine. You're just going to have to type all this manually, which is also fine. So we're just going to say, first thing that we're going to do is we're going to define the type for the props that the input component will accept. So here, it's going to be type input props. You're probably a pro at this by now. So this is going to be input HTML attributes. And it's going to be a input element. It's funny how it's not one of the first ones. There we go. Just get rid of that close tag. Okay, so those are our input pops. Just your basic HTML input, which is honestly my preference because this makes it a lot easier to use with native HTML properties later on. So this is going to be of type React functional component. I don't know why I typed FX. I did it again. We're going to pass in input props, and those are going to be the class name, if you ever want to override the class name, and the rest of the props that are required for an input. So if you want to have like disabled or like, well, actually you'll see how useful this is in a second. So inside the first curly brace, where our component body is, let's go ahead and add the base classes. We're also going to have disabled classes. You know what? I'm just going to have these be in the base classes because like it doesn't really make any sense to have them only in the disabled classes. So because they will only show up if you pass in the disabled property. So we'll say const base classes type string is going to be equal to block full width with a rounded border. That rounded border is going to be gray, and it's going to have an X padding of 4. It's going to have a Y padding of 3. Small text. When it's focused, we'll change the border to my favorite color, which is Emerald 500. And when it's focused, we'll give it a ring of Emerald 500. Because if you liked it, then you should have put a ring on it. And for the disabled classes, we're going to have the disabled pointer events none. So do nothing when you click or hover over it. And we'll also make its opacity 50% so that it looks disabled. I don't know why I just did that. There we go. I'm struggling. So now we're going to do the same thing that we did before with the merge classes. So we're going to say let merged classes. Why am I doing let? It's const. Yikes. There we go. Const merge classes string equals tailwind-merge. Oh my gosh. Why? Bruh. Okay, it really is not. Dude, I am not having a good time right now. Yikes. Okay, so import tailwind-merge. I don't know why my IntelliSense is being weird all of a sudden. From tailwind-merge. Was that too hard? Now we're going to use tailwind-merge as we have done 6 million gazillion times already. Here, we're going to open the function block, and in the array, we're going to pass in base classes. That's true. Base classes. And the class name that we passed into the component. And then, in the return statement, this is where things like I deviate a little bit from the norm. Instead of returning an input, I'm going to return a div with an input inside. And there's a reason I'm doing this, and you're going to see it in a second. I'm going to get rid of the type because we want this to be a prop that gets passed in. So the user should type input, and then they should provide the prop on the input component. And then we will pass in the props like so. So whatever type of the input is, it'll be defined on the input component. And instead of getting passed to the div, it'll get passed to the input directly. For the class name, let's pass in the merged classes. And I think that's it. Yeah. So let's go ahead and add an input to the app.tsx. So back in app.tsx, somewhere over here in the basic input, I guess. Yeah, the basic input. Let's change this to basic input and Alt-Shift down, and I'll say basic disabled input. Over here, we'll open up an HTML element, type in input with a capital I, and then click or enter to import that. You should see it over here like so. And now we will give it a type of text. So the nice thing about HTML inputs is there's a ton of different input types. In our case, for our examples purposes, we're just using a type of text. And we're going to define the placeholder. Now, you'll notice this looks like a property that we're passing into our component, but really, this is a HTML property that, as you can see, input HTML attributes. We're passing this to the HTML input because this is a standard attribute. So here, we're going to type basic input with a placeholder. I'm trying so hard not to cough because I have the worst cough and it sounds terrible in the mic. So, wait, why did I do that? That's the wrong text. Yikes. Yeah, type things here. I'm so sassy. Look at that. And I am going to just use a normal close, like HTML close tag thing. So we save that. There we go. There's our input. And oh, would you look at that? It does not take any of the styles, and that's because we're missing something. We are missing a package that its name I forgot. It is the Tailwind Forms package. So Tailwind doesn't give us everything out of the box. Some pack, because not everything is needed, but in the cases that you're using Tailwind Forms or Tailwind Form styling, you want to import that package to be able to use it. So we're going to type npm I at tailwind css/forms. There is a chance that I already have this installed, actually, so let me just double check. Nope, we don't. I don't think. Yep, we don't. So hit enter. That's going to install that. And I need to change my Tailwind configuration to use it. So inside the Tailwind config, underneath here, I'm going to import forms plugin from Tailwind Forms. There we go. And then I'm going to add this plugin to the plugins array. Save that. And you'll notice that we now have styles on the input. Yay, isn't that fun? So yeah, so that's our basic input. And for the next part, we're going to go ahead and, oh wait, hold up. What am I saying? I'm missing one. I didn't add the disabled one. Let's just do this. We're right next to the input. We'll type disabled. In the placeholder, I'm going to put the disabled. And I'm actually going to grab an emoji real quick. So let me just yoink that bad boy from over here. Where'd it go? Placeholders. Yeah. There we go. And there's the link for where you can get the emoji. I love adding emojis to sites, even though it's terrible UX. It just makes me happy because it's so sassy. So yeah. So now we have our basic input and our basic disabled input. And now to finish off this tutorial, I'm going to go ahead and add the input with a label and the input with a description. It's actually super quick. So it's basically two properties that we're going to add. It's very similar to what we did with the header and the footer on the card. So we're just going to pass in the label. This is just going to be a basic text property, and the description. Okay, that's not what I meant to do. There we go. Now we do need to extend the input props. Well, I should say we need to extend the input HTML element attributes. And to do that, we just add an and, open brackets, and then our new props. So label, which is optional. This is going to be a string. I cannot type. So it's just an optional label type, optional label prop. And then underneath it is going to be the description. So now if we go down to the actual content body, well, I think I missed something here. Yikes. Yeah, I did miss something. Well, it's not the end of the world, but it's just a width property. So inside of this first div, what I want to do is I want to actually give it a same kind of treatment as the card, where it has a max width of small. And actually, no, I didn't do this before, now that I think about it. This is, yeah, I know what I'm talking about. So, oh, space -3, I don't know what I'm talking about. So this wasn't needed before, but it is needed now because we want to actually render the label conditionally. So if the label gets defined, we want to return a label tag. Yeah, a label tag, which we will pass in the label prop if I knew how to type. And the label is going to have a class name of margin bottom 2. So I'm just going to add some space underneath it. The reason we're adding the margin bottom onto the label is because the label is conditional. If the label doesn't exist, we don't want a margin top over here because, you know, there might not be a need for margin top. So in this case, the margin bottom will only show up if the label is available. We're going to make this a block class. Going to give it small text, and we're going to make it medium font. There we go. So now I'm just going to duplicate this underneath the label, underneath the input, and I'm going to change the label to description. I'm going to copy this there. And the description is not going to be a label, it's going to be a p tag. This time it's going to have a margin top of 2. We can get rid of the block. It is going to be text small. It's not going to be font medium, but it is going to have a muted gray text like so. And now we can head back to App.tsx, and in this section, which is a kind of a lie actually, we're just gonna grab one of these. Yeah, this one should do. And paste it like so. I do need to get rid of some of this extra text. So we don't need this because we only have one example on this one. This is going to be a different type though. So this is going to be a type email, and you're going to see some magic if you're not familiar with how the input types in HTML work. For the label, we'll pass in email. And I'm going to save real quick just to show you. So this is what it looks like. So now if I type in some nonsense, oh, that totally should have worked. Interesting. Huh. Am I tripping? I may be tripping. So this should have autocomplete. Maybe I'm doing something wrong. I'm a little tired, so that's probably what it is. So for our placeholder, we're going to do u@site.com. So there you go. That's the placeholder. And, oh, wait, hold up. There we go. Yeah, that's what I was looking for. So why is it doing that? What? This should be showing me something. I think it's because I don't know how. Yeah. This should have the HTML autocomplete, but I think I may have missed a step. So this is of type email, with the label email, placeholder u@thing.com. Here we are passing in the props, HTML input element, HTML input element. Yeah, I'm not sure what I'm doing wrong. But it should be fine, because I'm pretty sure if I put in password, yeah, okay, no, I'm just tripping. I was expecting a certain behavior, but turns out I don't know what I'm doing. So let's get rid of this comment. Let's change this to just input with a label. And I'm going to copy this real quick, paste it here. And here I'll say input with a description, like so. And it's missing a description. So we have type, email, or you know what? We'll do type password just for funsies. And password, and in the I don't even know if you can put a placeholder in the password. Well, let's see. Super secret. Oh, you can? That's really cool. Okay, so I didn't know you could put a password, a placeholder in password. I thought it would just be blank. But we'll put a placeholder. I already have a placeholder. What am I doing? We'll put a description of whatever that nonsense that you see. It's like, we'll totally never share your deets, my friend. Winky face. There you go. There's our, oh my God. That's so cool. So there you go. There's the end of the first part of the tutorial. It is really lengthy, but this is geared towards beginners and folks who may not have like experience with React and Tailwind and such, or just building component libraries in general. The next parts of the tutorial are going to be a little bit shorter because they're not going to go into like the nuances of Tailwind as much as this one did. We're not going to describe and explain every class name. It's just going to be like going through the actual functionality. And it's going to be a little bit more advanced content. So the next video is going to be focused on adding the dark mode. So this is the dark mode as a little bit of a preview. And the one after that, the video following that, is going to be about routing. So it's going to be about making this a multi-page application where you can actually navigate and so forth and so on. So yeah, just something to look forward to. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you learned something.